looking for trouble. It's always a bit of fun, that one is some of the pictures we've got. Some of them have got real gas safety concerns, and some of them we have had incidents with. So just gives you an indication of what we find, perhaps what our regional investigation officers find when they go out to look at illegal gas workers' installations. And this would be following complaints from customers, genuine customers who phone up and check, are they registered? Have you got their name? Have you got their address, postcode? We can do all sorts of searches to ensure if that guy's registered or if not. And then we hand it over to our Rio team that would deal with that. So business as usual. Over 360,000 domestic and commercial inspection visits completed. So that's a lot of inspections, looking at a lot of work. 5,300 non-registered and illegal investigations, and I'll drill into that a little bit later on to give an indication of what type of work we find, how it's classified in relation to the unsafe situations procedure, and just the sheer amount. 163 specialist incident investigations completed. We have a series of guys that are actually trained up to do not only full witness statements, but also incident investigations, where they would recreate a scene to find out exactly what's happened. So if you have a look at the regions, we've got 6 regions, and then for every one of those regions there's an area operations manager that has a team of 68 inspectors. We've also got those 7 what we call regional investigation officers, work very much about looking at illegal gas work, complaints against, if you like, illegal gas workers in general. Well, we've also got 5 large business inspectors, and these 5 large business inspectors work very much with large organisations, British Gas, Cadent, any of those very large businesses that may need additional support, just through the sheer number of engineers that they have working for that organisation. Myself, my name's Noel Claydon, and I'm a key account manager. So again, I look after all the large businesses, but at a slightly strategic level. So mine would not just cover technical, it'll cover finances, etc. So we work very much with the larger businesses, supporting them in what they do, how the work is inspected, and it can come right the way down to just finance and debt collection, would you believe? But it's very much a support mechanism for them. So technical services, as you probably see, the gas safe stand is directly behind you there, and we've got one of our technical officers there who takes phone calls normally. He's come here today so you get a little bit of a face-to-face, so you can actually see what our technical officers are. They're all very highly skilled and trained. Many come from a British Gas background, the same as myself, but please don't hold that against me. So within the team, we've got a technical customer services director, registration and technical manager, technical support officer, standards manager, who very much looks at standards, ACS, etc. All these vital people are needed within Gas Safe Register, not only to support the internal staff, but very much to support the external people as well. So it's certainly a case of supporting everyone within the business. Competence manager, and we've got 9 of the technical officers who take any phone calls, could be about anything. Does anybody use technical department here at all? Have you ever phoned technical? Okay. And they're very much there for you. A lot of people say, well, you know, should I be phoning them? I'm a bit worried he'd be concerned, but I don't know the answer. Well, as far as we're concerned, technical support is there for you. You pay your registration fees. So it's very much a case of, if you've got an issue, you want clarification. Many times when I've done it, I have to say, people know the answer. What they want is just that level of confidence to say, no, you're dealing with that right. Well, I've got this cooker and it's burning yellow, and is it ID, is it AR? Well, what do you think? Well, it's burning yellow, so I guess it's ID, isn't it? Absolutely. It poses a positive threat to life or property. Yellow flame means what? Carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, dangerous? Well, we absorb carbon monoxide about 200 to 300 times quicker than we can absorb oxygen. So of course it's our body's affinity for that gas that makes it so dangerous to us. And we love it. And of course it combines with the blood, carboxyhemoglobin. So it's very much a case it will build up. We did have a fatality a number of years ago within a hotel where the build-up was 800 parts per million. When you think about it, 800 parts per million doesn't sound a huge amount, does it? 800 parts per million? But in a 2-hour average, it actually resulted in the fatality of a 52-year-old gentleman. So you can give you an understanding of how it can build up in the bloodstream. So how we identify these installations and how we deal with them in an efficient and effective manner to actually assist the customer. They're always going to think you're not helping them, but in reality, you're making an installation safe. How we deal with that, we'll come on to that a little bit later on. I'll be very surprised if none of you ladies and gentlemen here today have come across an ID installation, and, you know, without being dramatic about it, I spoke to a guy this morning, and with what he had undertaken with a job that he found, there's a potential he saved that customer's life. And I don't think we can under-dramatise that. It's a fact. An ID boiler spilling fumes into the room. You know, if he hadn't have found that, turned it off, put a label on it, with the customer's authority in this case, disconnected and capped it, you know, the customer could have continued to use that, and that could have ended up in a tragedy. So technical services provide any sort of technical information, and we're talking to inspectors as well. I phone up technical department. Sometimes I've got it right in my head, but I'm not sure, and guess what? I'm going to phone them up and ask them. They might rib me a bit and say, oh no, I think you should know that. But hey, you can't know everything, can you? You can't all keep it in your head. And somebody said, yeah, but you might think it's a silly question. The only silly question is the one you don't ask. So trust me when I say they're there to support and help you. They are very experienced. They cover not only natural gas, but liquefied petroleum gas. We cover leisure and accommodation vehicles and RPHs, residential park homes. It will cover right across the board in relation to your technical requirements or needs. So it's very much a case of, if you've got concern, please do not hesitate to phone. Those incident investigators are very busy people, sad to say. I don't necessarily mean in result of fatalities, but what would be deemed as a significant injury. That's somebody that's overcome with fumes. In 2017, we had over 95,000 telephone inquiries. So it gives an indication, just the sheer volume coming through, of engineers who just want to double check, got a bit of an issue, and sometimes it's just that verification that I'm handling it in a very professional and proper manner. So I'd always say, if you've got a concern, please phone. We do receive 300 pieces of correspondence as well, because I'm sure you're aware, you can't always get over what you need to tell somebody over the phone. It can be a little bit difficult. So you can actually email us, send a picture, say, look, this is what I've got, you know, this is what my concerns are, what do you feel about this? And they will reply back to you to give you an answer that hopefully will allow you to move forward with that. Or just give you that confidence to say, hey, yeah, you're dealing with that in a very good way, in accordance with the current regulations. So quite simply, is it a straight question? Often not. In order to have a level of risk to determine, it requires someone obviously to be on site, because you're there, you can actually see the installation. And like I say, a picture paints 1,000 words. If you can take a picture and send it via email, I'd certainly advise to do that, because it can support you a little bit better than just trying to explain over the phone. And sometimes it is difficult to get over what you're trying to say. We cannot see the issue, so we can only respond to the information we receive. And that's what sometimes happens with a telephone call. We need that level of information. You know, somebody said, oh, I've got a boiler in a compartment. Is that okay? It's open fluid and it's ventilated. Is that okay? Yeah, no problem at all. The door opens and it's ventilated. Yeah, it's fluid okay. Wonderful. Yeah, no issue with that at all. Done your flow test, spillage test, etc. Then the next minute they say, well, it is in a bathroom. No, that's not okay. It's a banned location. It can't go in there. So we do need to have that level of information. So it's very important you tell us as much as we can to be able to give you it over the phone. Sometimes, otherwise, it could be quite large and widespread, the answer to cover every eventuality. We provide help and support irrespective of advice offered to the caller. We're not the legal duty holders. That means we're not there. Because the Gas Safety Installation Use Reg says this: where a person performs work on a gas appliance, they shall thereafter do the test. So it's the person that actually does the work, performs work on that gas appliance. So, Investigations team. As I say, they are a dedicated team, and it's something that obviously we all feel very strongly about. I'm sure you do, as somebody that has to jump through all of the hoops, pay your registration fee, do your ACS every 5 years, have time off to be inspected, etc., etc. So it's very important that we do as much as reasonably practicable to track down and basically eradicate illegal gas workers. We have had some adverts going out on the television recently. Has anybody seen the new adverts, the gas safe registered ones on the television? You know, they've started to hit home to some of the homeowners. We do get a lot of phone calls where somebody would phone up and say, "Oh, I've just seen that advert on the telly. I just want to check on this guy. He's coming to service my boiler." Well, let me who he is, madam. If he's got his, registration number, if he's got a postcode, what his name is, because we can actually track to see if that guy is actually gas safe registered. And one thing we would always tell the customer, and we continue to say on an ever-increasing basis, if that installer can't show you his card, show him the door. He's got to have one of those. That, I'm sure you're all very proud of it, and so you should be. Because even my assessment's on the back, and I had to work fairly hard to get those, trust me. And what's the pass rate on that? 100%. 99.9% at the end of the assessment is a failure, isn't it? You've got to get 100% at the end of that. So it's very much a thing to be proud of. So somebody said, well, they don't ask me for my card. No, sometimes customers don't ask me for mine. But I've already got it out and showed them. Explained to them about, I am looking at your boiler, and as you can see, I've got the qualification for boilers. So that's something that we need to work together with. Yes, we do need to promote it. And believe me, we are starting on that literally as we speak. But we need you to do that as well. So you do your part. Show them the card. Show them how proud you are to get it, because it's not that easy. And many might think it is, but trust me, to be a registered gas engineer with the responsibilities you hold when you go into customer's house, it's no mean feat at all. I've been in the gas industry for 42 years, so I guess I'm a bit biased, but that's what I genuinely believe. We go in, we help customers, we protect the general public from unsafe gas installations. That in itself is extremely important. We do work very closely with the HSE and enforcement bodies, because it's very much a relationship where we need to go out, work together, track down illegal gas workers. Our Rio team have good communication links back to the HSE. We've done little stings and operations. We trade in standards. Some of you might have seen some of the watchdog programs, etc., where we're looking at unregistered illegal gas workers doing gas work, showing exactly what they're doing. You gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen are totally aware that if you perform work on an appliance, the statutory tests, what we call 26(9) checks, burner pressure, heat input, fluid, ventilation, operation to ensure it's safe functioning, which is safety devices, you know to do that. But somebody else not going in and looking at appliance and then saying it's safe, well, it's just not true. Because unless you do those tests, how do you know it's safe? Exactly. So that's why we only need gas safe registered people to do the work in this country. So we'll have a look at the unregistered visits, and it's a bit scary when you look at it. Out of 667 unregistered investigation visits, 19.6% of those are actually ID, immediately dangerous. And immediately dangerous is a positive threat to life or property. It is spilling fumes, there is a gas leak. So it's an ID, a positive threat. 47.6% was at risk. If left working, could go on to be an ID installation. It's not now. So a boiler, it's got no ventilation. But it's burning okay, and it passes a flow test and it passes a spillage test, but has no ventilation. It's not dangerous at the moment, but 3 months down the line, when it's sucked all the dust into the lint arrestor and it's blocked up and it's burning yellow, it's sooted the heat exchanger up and it's spilled fumes back into the property, it's now ID. Well, that's too late. So an at-risk installation, that with no ventilation, as far as we're concerned, that's the appropriate action to take with that. At risk. We'd say to the customer, look, you've got no ventilation, it's at risk at the moment, it could go on to be a dangerous gas installation, but with the new unsafe sits, it's danger, do not use. Not just for ID, but also for AR. We categorise those two as danger, do not use, which was a slight change to the industry unsafe situations procedure, but it was felt by one of the top coroners in the country because of fatality we had. The communication between the engineer and the customer wasn't quite right. It was a case of, well, it's at risk, but hey, if you want to turn it back on and use it, you can. No, that's not quite right. It's at risk and could go on to be ID. So it's a danger, do not use installation. Now, we have to say to the customer, with your authority, you let me turn it off. Slightly different with an ID, because an ID is, look, you found spillage of fumes or a gas leak, and we say to the customer, look, the boiler's spilling fumes, will you let me disconnect and cap your appliance? No. Okay, I'm now going to inform the emergency service provider that if necessarily we use their powers under the Rights of Entry Act, or they'll dig up the road and cut the gas off like they did with one in Cambridge the other day, believe it or not. It was an ID, it's an immediately dangerous gas installation. The customer wouldn't let the engineer, but the engineer phoned up. He gave the details. Very significantly, he got the log number, day, date and time. So when Caden come out, they will, saying to the customer, well, we need to be able to disconnect and cap that. If the customer doesn't let you in, there's an outside box, or in this case, it was an MDP main. So MDP, yellow plastic, dug the road up, put what they call a roller on it, squash the supply, cut cap, £5,000 to reinstate. So they will do that with immediately dangerous gas installation, because sadly some engineers said to me, well, I'm going to disconnect and cap it. You haven't got the authority to disconnect and cap it. You are not the supplier of gas. But guess what? If a customer refuses that, you know a man that can come in and do that, and that's when you phone the emergency service provider, and they will take control of that and handle it in a professional way. They're all very much trained up to do that type of work and jobs. Hopefully, most customers will understand that it's getting pretty serious now. So hopefully, once you've educated and explained, look, I'm here to help you and to save you and possibly your family from a dangerous gas installation. So hopefully they'll let you go forward and disconnect and cap it. Not always the case, but at least you've given all that information. Well, scarily, that equates to 67.2% of unsafe gas work. Danger, do not work. AR, ID, both danger, do not use. And you probably see the warning notices, etc., have slightly changed in relation to that. When I said about not to current standards, I want to make it really clear that just because not to current standards is not within the new industry unsafe situations procedure, it doesn't mean NCS has vanished. They're still there. But the top coroner in the country said, is a not to current standards installation unsafe? Well, not really, no. But it's below the minimum standards required by either the manufacturer's instructions or the British standards. Okay, but is it unsafe? No, well, we don't want an unsafe document to be diluted with lots of NCSs. So the NCSs are still there. We will defect if a job is below the manufacturer's instructions or the British standards or codes of practice, make no bones about that. But the NCS is not to current standards, is not within the industry unsafe situations procedure. They wanted that document to purely relate to unsafe gas installations, purely danger, do not use installations. Just a bit of a case study actually. Gas Safe Register obviously received complaints about this particular company, Nigel Murray, a Gas Safe registered engineer trading as M. Murray and Sons actually, and employing his son Grant, who was actually who was not gas safe to do the work. Very important. Somebody said, funny enough, said to me the other day as well when I was there, he said, yeah, but what I do is I've got this guy and he does the work for me and then, I go and test it. Is that okay? No. Is he installing the boiler? Yeah, but he only hangs it on the wall. Yeah. What about a gas pipe? Oh, he runs a gas pipe. I commission it, get it set up. No. He's got to be registered to install that boiler. He's got to be registered to install that gas pipe. Oh, but I check it all out afterwards. No. Because what will happen is you could then end up with a situation you get half a dozen people registered and all these other guys going and doing gas work. They could probably do it a lot cheaper because they ain't got to jump through the hoops you gentlemen have got to jump through. So it's very important. You install pipe work, We have organisations that all they do is first fix pipe work. So are they registered? Absolutely. They might only have the core and pipe work, but they are registered to do that work. The next person may come in and fit the boiler on the wall and do the commissioning, but it's very important. You need, whatever category of work you do, or you work on that appliance, and I do mean perform work on a gas appliance. Somebody said, well, yeah, but what if I'm doing change the meter in the smart metering arena, and I've changed the meter and I've got to look at the boiler and look at the cooker. Do I need boilers and cookers and etc.? No. Because within the core, it covers you to be able to identify and do what they call a visual risk assessment. Is a visual risk assessment performing work on a gas appliance? On your landlord gas safety records, you've looked at the boiler, you've done your tests, the tenant assessment of it. If you turned the gas off at the gas meter, it would mean looking at flue, stability, etc. and also flame picture, which is really best practice to light it up and check the flame picture. So you've done a visual risk assessment. The other trace elements you're going to have in there, carbon monoxide is going to be one of them. And strangely enough, some of the high producing CO burners are ones off of cooker grills, would you believe? Especially ones called solar grills, where perhaps you've only got a very small hole perforated into that solar grill. The combustion characteristics of that grill are totally are well off the chart. We've had one of them that sent a flue gas analyzer into error. So that'll give you an indication of how high the CO was on that particular installation. So whilst we investigated 4 properties that had been undertaken, it was the basis of our final prosecution, or the HSE's final prosecution. There was a number of at-risk defects found. So they're ones that still dangerous gas installations, as far as we're concerned. Danger, do not use. This turned to be a protracted trial with the defence employing an expert witness with Gas Safe Register acting as the expert witness for the prosecution. And that's what our, if you like, our specialist investigation team will do. Sentencing was delayed on 2 occasions. Look at the ideal boiler casing, not correctly fixed. The case itself's not fitted. We've got grommets here where obviously they should have grommets on them. Sealing that, there was no grommets on there, so that's actually an open hole where the cables pass into the boiler. Concentric flue system, 2.3 metres within the bathroom, consisting of 4 sections of flues with 3 joints, but supported by 1 bracket. Now I'm sure all you ladies and gentlemen are aware, with these flues, especially with expansion, if they're not clipped correctly in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, they move, they pull apart. In this particular case, what's it in? Well, it's in a duct or a void. Now, in this particular case, the panel's taken off. Basically, there was no access panels to go and look at that flue, because when any of you ladies and gentlemen perform work on a gas appliance and there's a flue in the void, you've got to ensure that that flue throughout its entire length is suitable and a correct installation in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. So the access panels allow you to do that, don't they? You can see the flue, you can see the flue route, you can see where the flue goes. Has it got a fall on it? Is it correctly clipped? We've taken box sections down and the flue's fallen apart. Then we realised that damp patch on the box section was where it was leaking. So it does happen. So you see installations like that, and of course the important part about this is having access to have a look at that installation so you can correctly assess is that safe to use. Because when you say it's safe to use on the landlord gas safety record, I'm sure you're all aware it's a legal document, isn't it? Once it's filled in, once you've completed it, you've issued it, it's a legal document. So you've got to be pretty sure that you've undertaken and looked at all those particular things as per Reg 26.9. Correct flue route, termination. It was found in this case that Nigel Murray had subcontracted the gas installation work to his son, who he wasn't gas safe registered. It was also found that Nigel Murray was aware that Grant Murray was not a competent gas safe registered engineer, but allowed the work to be completed. You know, if you employ somebody, and I would say this to everyone, and this includes large businesses or whoever, if you employ somebody, always check, first of all, registration card. Wonderful. See your qualifications, please. You've all got the qualifications. Look at them, front and back of the gas safe card. I would say that's all reasonable, practical steps for if you employ a subby, you've taken all those reasonable steps to ensure if he's going to do work for you, he is a competent and legitimate trained professional. by saying, oh, well, he said he was registered, that's okay. I think you'll find the health and safety will not deem that to be acceptable. They would expect you to go further and, reasonably practicable. So N. Murray & Sons Limited of Chelmsford pleaded guilty to 2 charges of Regulation 3.2 of the Gas Safety Installation Use Regs 1998, and the company was fined £6,000 in this case. Now, Marjorie Murray pleaded guilty to 2 charges of Section 37, the Health and Safety at Work Act. They'll always go for a higher the actual higher document to make a prosecution, and he was sentenced to 6 months community order, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew for 4 months. Grant Murray pleaded guilty to breaching 2 charges of Regulation 3.1. That's to do with supervision, if you like, supervisory work, and was sentenced to 12 months community order and a curfew from 7 till 5. So, it's very much where some of the courts now are looking at this very seriously, and custodial sentences have been put in place in a few occasions, actually. So, suspect a cowboy, it does happen. You can do this totally anonymously through to Gas Safe Register, name the illegal gas worker, contact telephone number, etc. We used to use the old, going back a few years, you might have seen the advert. Do you remember it was the old blazing saddles, like sitting around a campfire? Gas and cowboys don't mix. You might remember it. Tongue in cheek, but it was a very good point. Gas and cowboys don't mix. Gas and competent, legitimate, trained professionals do. You know exactly what to look for. So you can report it to us telephone-wise or via the www.gassaferegister.co.uk website. And it's a case of, some people say, well, I found somebody, I'm concerned about something, then do contact us. We will follow it up. We will pass it straight across to our regional investigation officers, who are a dedicated team to look into that. So Gas Safe Register itself has investigated 13 carbon monoxide related incidents and 4 fire/explosion incidents between the 1st of March 2017 and the 28th of Feb 2018. And these investigations included 7 fatalities, one of which was an infant, and 6 were non-fatal investigations. But mate, when I say non-fatal, non-fatal, I mean, we've had certain situations where they were so badly overcome with fumes that it was that it could possibly cause them, if you like, everlasting issues, and they were flown to a hyperbaric or decompression chamber and was put into a hyperbaric chamber to force oxygen into them to be able to stop that CO causing more of an issue. These are very serious incidents where people are hospitalised and have got major problems. So would you believe carbon monoxide incident, people who have suffered from CO could possibly end up in a hyperbaric or decompression chamber? But it does a good job, especially depending on the concentrations of CO in your bloodstream. Investigations, though, cover a wide range of premises, domestic, non-domestic, could be caravans and boats even, because of course they're LPG, and many of those, if you go on holiday, you will go on holiday and you go rent your caravan. What's it got in there? It's got LPG. Well, it's rented, you're paying for it. So they have to have landlord gas safety records on those and on the boats as well. And you can ask to see them. If they're not there, ask them. I always do. If I go and stop places, I've been to Butlins, and if it's got LPG, I say, have you got your landlord gas safety record, please? Just want to check that's done, it's all up to speed. My family's going in there, it's one of the first things I do. I don't think they particularly like it, but I ask them anyway. So following the sudden death of a male in his 20s, in which a registered gas engineer had worked on a gas warm air unit, and very important to say, warm air units are perfectly safe, installed and maintained in the correct fashion, no issue at all, but this is just the truth of it. It did relate to a warm air unit. Only days before the person's death, the police requested a formal investigation, as they would do. Now, the engineer had checked and deemed this 40-plus year warm air unit to be safe. He's gone and filled in the actual documentation. Correct. Is it safe to use? Yes, it is safe to use. However, and this is the big issue here, he did not have the necessary ACS, National Accreditation Certification Scheme. He did not have that element of work. DAH1 is for ducted air heaters. And there was numerous faults associated with the installation of that warm air unit, which he failed to identify. Well, probably he would, because unless he's done some of the actual training on domestic air heaters and passed the assessment on it, he might not. Some of the complexities of return air and ventilation. Some of the ventilation used to duct back into the return air and was on like a bird cage in the loft. There's lots of configurations with warm air units you need to be aware of. But if you've done your ACS, and I've got mine, I've done my air heaters on the back, you would have gone through that. You have to identify it, that the plenum chamber, that it has got ducted warm air, or perhaps the little flexi that goes on isn't connected correctly. Because guess what? If it isn't, it could depressurise that particular compartment, pull down the flue, it goes into the return air, it goes through the appliance, and guess what then? It goes right around the whole house, doesn't it? So it's very important that you know about warm air and how to deal with them. Very important indeed. So having no competence in warm air units, the engineers tape, the compartment ventilation at high and low level were closable and fitted with fire screens. So you can imagine, you start with these ones at risk. Even if it didn't spill fumes, it'd be at risk, wouldn't it? Ventilation issues, anything to do with closable on an air vent. If it works fine, it's still at risk. We're still filling that paperwork. It's still danger, do not use. It ain't dangerous today. It might be dangerous 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days down the line. And that's how we're dealing with that now. And the unsafe situation has changed to adapt for that. The investigation led by the police and supported by one of our incident investigation officers at Gas Safe Register was very thorough and detailed, as you'd imagine. During this time, the engineer was under the suspicion of causing manslaughter by gross negligence of that victim. So you can imagine, he was talking really serious here. Potentially, this carried a life sentence if convicted. Now, this is very interesting. Following the detailed investigation, including toxicology, go away, take the blood, check the blood, and pathology, and weather reports, etc., it was proven that cause of death was not carbon monoxide poisoning. Was not carbon monoxide poisoning in this particular case. The engineer had lived a nightmare through the process, all because he missed basic safety faults. So he missed those ARs. But was it ID? Was it spilling fumes? No, it was actually found that it wasn't. And this is why it's very important to correctly identify unsafe installations. If you've got a concern or you need a little bit of guidance, our technical department are not going to tell you exactly what to do. They can't see exactly what's what. What they can do is guide you through and say, what can you see? Tell me, oh, you've seen this. Oh, yeah, and I think there's signs of, I can see signs of spillage on there. Have you got spillage, etc.? ID, right. Intermediately dangerous gas installation. Let's follow along the unsafe situations procedure and make that safe. Hopefully the customer will let you disconnect and cap it when you ask them. You've got to ask them. Please will you? No. Right. Emergency service provider. 0800 111 999, and they will use their powers to deal with that particular installation. So where unsafe situations are identified, it's critical that the registered engineer follows that procedure. As I say, you can get that online free, there's no issue. And I'd look at it, it does give you guidance. I'm not saying it's a be-all and end-all and it's got everything in there. But what it will do, it'll give you an understanding of what ID is, AR. Is it a positive threat to life or property? It's a gas leak. Well, they can blow up, okay. 5 and 15%, 5 the lower, 15 the upper. You get that together, and concentration and ignition. Believe me, when it goes bang, it really does go bang in a very big way. Carbon monoxide, same. It's spilling fumes. Well, actually, it's funny you should say that, because my son's been having bad headaches. Okay, where's the boiler? Well, we've got a back boiler unit, and okay. And where's his bedroom? He's above. Okay, got ducting at the side. When they looked at the boiler, where the pipes go through, should all be sealed, shouldn't it? Should be in this nice little house. There should be no wave fumes, but it weren't. It was going into the side ducting and trenching up into the child's bedroom. So it gives you an indication of that. So where an engineer carries out work outside of their competence, the HSE, as far as they're concerned, will classify him as an illegal gas work and the issue is still an option for the HSE in this case, despite no further police action, for us to investigate, or for them to investigate, because he's a legal gas worker. So, Gas Safety Week, we're continually trying to promote Gas Safe Register, talk about our registered engineers, always use a Gas Safe Registered engineer to do gas work. If you've got any concerns about that, you can phone us up. We'll give you names of registered businesses within local postcodal areas, so you can have a registered business within your village even. Has anybody had any work from via Gas Safe Registers that come through to you at all? Anyone? I've got a few nods of heads there. Yeah. Oh, great, brilliant. So, you know, this is what we want. This is what we want. We want customers, if they're not sure, contact us, because guess what? We will put them the right direction for a competent, legitimate, trained professional. So it's very important for us to do that and to get this into the public's consciousness. So we talked about the gas industry unsafe situations procedure, IGEM G11. It's very much been, if you like, we held the document before, it's very much looked at from IGEM now. They, if you like, they've IGEMised it with their IGEM documents, and it follows that format. But it is still a good document. It's laid out in a slightly different fashion to when Gas Safe Register and Corgi looked after it, but in reality it contains the same information. It's all there. And very importantly, and this is most important, it's not a thing you have to buy. You can download it free online, only if you're Gas Safe Registered. So IGEM 11 really focuses solely on unsafe situations. AR, ID, both the same label, danger, do not lose. This allows concentration on our safety elements with a single key message. And it really is danger, safety warning, do not use. On both AR and ID, how we deal with them slightly different. AR, will you let me? No, okay, well fine, I'm going to give you the documentation. Will you sign it? Refuse to sign. ID, positive threat. Oh, this is a bit more serious. Will you let me disconnect and cap it? No. Off you go. Right, 0800 111 999, phone the ASB, get your log number, they will deal with it. So when assessing the gas appliance installation, consult the manufacturer's instructions. Somebody said earlier on, funny enough, he said, well, I've got this boiler and it doesn't need compartment ventilation, it's room seal fan flue. And I said, okay, how do you know it doesn't need compartment ventilation? Well, it says so in the manufacturer's instructions. But I looked at BS 5440 Part 2 and it says you need ventilation. I said, this is very simple. In the hierarchy of documents, manufacturer's instructions override British standards. Is everybody happy with that? Whatever it says in the manufacturer's instructions is what you follow. If you're doing your ACS, you really have got to check the manufacturer's instructions, especially with some of these types of appliances on gas fires, where it's very specific how you test the flue. You know, 2 inches in, 45-degree angle, smoke match going inside. You need to be able to check the manufacturer's instructions. That's what you go by. If it says it don't need compartment ventilation, it doesn't need compartment ventilation, because it overrides the British standards, which is an all-encompassing document and covers everything. Those installations, or those boilers, have actually been assessed and checked and tested and verified that in a compartment, it doesn't raise the heat, so it doesn't need air, if you like, to cool the compartment. So when assessing any gas appliance or installation, you've got to check the manufacturer's instructions. They're not always available, but then there are standards that relate to it. And you've got a full suite of standards. Has anybody got standards online here, just as a matter of interest? Anybody aware of that? Well, you have got standards online, fantastic. Well, you know how important they are. It's about £14,000 worth of British standards. So you can actually get a subscription for those, which is very much subsidised. This is from the BSI. You can't do it for large businesses over 10, but from 1 to 5 and 5 to 10, you can actually get standards online, which is a full, you can basically look at all the British standards. You can see, I think 5440 Part 1 on flues is about £370 on itself, one standard. So you can imagine that gaining access to that and being able to check the standards is great. I mean, I've got it on my laptop. We use a thing called Caligo Reader. Although I've been in the industry 42 years as a gas man, as such, I can't remember everything. So then you can go back and find the information. If you ever have an inspector come out with you and he asks you a question, he says, well, what about this? Now, I don't necessarily can't remember that. But guess what? I've got this document, and in this document it tells me, well, you're technically competent. Why? Because you've got the information, you know where to find it. Don't be expected to remember everything. Nobody can. I can't remember everything. But a technically competent person knows where the information is and he knows where to find it, and that's very important. So there have been only minor changes to IGEM G11. The layout of the document, minor changes to the tables, but the very important part of it is always this visual risk assessment, because we get lots of confusions about a visual risk assessment, and it will happen a lot. And it happens a lot because you might be working on the boiler. I'm only fitting a new boiler. Well, they got a cooker, they got a gas fire as well. Well, that's nothing to do with me. Yes, it is. I'm afraid it is to do with you, but only in relation to doing a visual risk assessment. You know, you fitted the boiler, you've turned the gas off, haven't you? You've had to purge, etc., test, purge, and because of that, if you actually have a look on this basic chart within G11, you can actually see it talks about visual risk assessment. Now, if an appliance is encountered by working on another appliance, so you're repairing the boiler and there's a cooker there, it's looking at really location, fluid, ventilation, signs of distress, is it stable and secure, but not flame picture in this particular case. However, if appliance is encountered during a tightness test, so on your landlord gas safety record, you've done a tightness test. A lot of people think a landlord gas safety record, you've got to do a tightness test. No, it's recommended that while you're there, that you do a tightness test, because that's the best way of checking pipe work. Sometimes contractually, the actual landlord wants you to do a gas tightness test, so you've got to do it. But it says it's recommended, but certainly best practice. In my part, it's the only way the best checking pipe work is to put a gauge on or a manometer, and if it's leaking, it soon tells you. I might be able to see the pipe work that goes up there, but the one that goes in the flue and buried in the screen, how good is that? By putting the tightness test on, it tells me exactly how well that's working. So with this one, with the tightness test, it used to be a tick that said you basically got to check the flame picture. Now it's considered best practice. For just my level of input is, you looked at the cooker and it's stable, secure and all that lot, it's great. But most of the installations I've ever come across in my 42 years, I haven't found out that cooker's unsafe until I've lit it up. Then I've turned the burner on. Oh my word, it's floppy, it's doing this, right? You know, as soon as I see that, it's ID. What? It's a flueless appliance. So all those products of combustion are not going out for a flue directly to out, they're in the room. Some grills, I mean, we had one grill, we put a flue gas analyzer on it. We used the little tubes with 8mm with holes and doing the flue gas analysis off the top of that, and it nearly broke the analyzer. So it gives an indication. Purely by looking at flame picture can actually determine how well that appliance is burning and how unsafe it is. So it's very important to do that. The other one is if you've done purging, you fitted a meter, then it's not considered best practice. You've got to light that burner up, you've got to check it on those appliances. So for, as you can imagine, smart meter readers who are changing the meters, etc., and repurging, they will be expected to light the appliances up and do a visual risk assessment, and they've got to do that. That is within the industry-defined document, IGG11. So Gas Safe Register have withdrawn the old technical bulletin, obviously when IGM G11 came in. So TB001, industry unsafe sits, and also TB012, which was the visual risk assessment, because it's all incorporated now within IGM G11. As I say, very important, you can download it free. Very quickly, we're looking at some of the amendments actually to the amendments to the Domestic Building Services Compliance Guide 2013. The 2018 amendments introduced revised standards in relation to gas-fired boilers installed in existing dwellings. Now these changes affect section 2 of that particular document and section 3 of the guide and parts of the introductory section, but there's no other changes made to that document. I'll just roughly cover those. The amendments to the guide came into force on the 6th of April last year, 2018. So when replacing a boiler, the boiler controls are considered to be a part of the boiler. Makes sense, doesn't it? Installation, and should therefore meet the standards set out in the relevant sections of L1A. For gas-fired combination boilers, certain energy efficiency measures are also considered to be part of the boiler installation as well. I'm sure many of you probably heard about additional measures and Combi Plus, etc. They give you 4 areas of additional energy efficiency. So for gas-fired boilers, a minimum energy efficiency standard applies to the replacement appliance. For gas-fired boilers, the installation of replacement appliance control should also be included within that. For gas-fired combi boilers, the installation of a replacement appliance should also include those additional energy efficiency measures. So when new or replacement gas-fired boiler is installed in existing dwellings, the following minimum standards should be met. Boiler efficiency of table 2, boiler interlock, obviously we don't want the boiler cycling, so an interlock with that boiler, time and temperature control. If the new or replacement gas-fired boiler is a combination boiler, the following standards should also be met, and at least one of the energy efficiency minimum standards of column 2 of table 4. We'll move on to that. So table 4 lists those minimum standards when replacing components of a gas-fired wet central heating system. Table 4, in addition, identifies good practice and upgrades the rest of the system beyond the requirements of the building regulations when making planned and emergency replacements. I'm sure many of you have seen this particular document. The boiler SEDBUT rate in 2009 efficiency for boilers in new dwellings cannot be less than 88%. The boiler ERP efficiency for boilers installed in existing dwellings should not be less than 92%. So the boiler efficiency for heating boilers that are combined with range cookers should also be should be also in section 2.3 of that document. Gas-fired ranges are slightly different in the way that they operate. So SEDBUT 2009 and SEDBUT 2005 efficiency values are different to one another and are both different for the ERP efficiency. So all boiler manufacturers should be calculating and declaring the energy efficiency of their boilers, which I'm sure you do. You can see that, it's all on the appliance itself, and also with the energy related products. For boilers installed in existing buildings, the ERP efficiency should be used and not the SEDBUT rating. So you must use the ERP for that, for existing. All boiler types except heating boilers that are combined with range cookers, and the ERP seasonal efficiency of the boiler should be a minimum of 92% and not significantly less than the efficiency of the appliance being replaced. So, boiler emergency plan, install a new interlock as defined for new systems. We've got time and temperature control should be installed on the heating system. Combination boilers, into addition, at least one of the following energy efficiency measures should be installed and should be chosen to be appropriate for that installation. Well, heat recovery, very difficult, that one. I think some of the manufacturers do a kit with that already, which is actually recovering the heat from that particular flue system. Very difficult to retrofit to older installations. Some of the industrial commercial used to have heat recovery units in the flue, so taking the heat back out the flue and recycling that and using it to perhaps supplement the hot water. Weather compensations, anybody fitted those? Weather compensation systems, outside stats, etc. Becoming very popular actually, and we've had some good feedback in relation to these weather compensation units in relation to energy efficiency. So combination boilers, load compensation defined as a control function which maintains the internal temperatures by varying the actual flow temperature from the heat generator relative to the measured response of the system itself. So you can see how smart these systems are becoming. Thermostats with automation and optimization. So the automation is a function which automatically adjusts the time and temperature settings based on the occupancy detection and or stored data from the user adjustments over time. So these are very smart. Optimization is a control function which starts the boiler operation at the optimum time to achieve the set point temperature at the start of the occupancy period. So we can see these are very smart. The new boiler and its control should be meet the standards of section 2 within the document. Obviously fitting of individual radiators, TRVs, thermostatic radiator valves, extremely important, to give that temperature each room and define temperatures as well that you adjust to. Well, except those in the reference room itself. So, very quickly, we just look at the amendments to the gas safety installation use regs. Very quick, which will finish up nicely at 12:30. So there has been some changes to the gas safety installation use regs. One of the main ones has been really this change to what they call an MOT style landlord gas safety record, which has caused a little bit of a confusion, but hopefully we'll be able to update you accordingly. There is a technical bulletin, really important this one. Again, you can download this, called an industry standards update, available online to every registered business, so you can lock into the technical area of your web when you go into your a part of the website, and you can download these free. Download, print them out. I think you can attach them as a PDF. A lot of my large companies use them and actually put them to their smartphones, etc. They've got a PDF of that. So Regulation 36A, what it does do, it provides flexibility in the timing of the landlord's gas safety checks. We had a lot of information come back from landlords saying, yeah, but do you know what? I get in 2 months every time with these particular people. Not everyone, but so every year I get in 2 months earlier, because we have to start it 2 months earlier. It's the nature of we want to be able to get in now. We want to hit our 99, 100% hit rate in relation to having all the landlord gas safety checks done on all our appliances that we own. So we start, nice and early, 2 months before. But over X amount of years, we end up doing an extra landlord gas safety record and paying for it. Is that fair? Not really, because it doesn't happen with an MOT on a car, does it? You get the additional months added. So that's exactly what they've done and looked at. So where a safety check on an appliance or flue has been completed within that 2 month period, ending with the deadline date, the check is to be treated as have been made on that day. I've done it 2 months early though. Yeah, but as far as they're concerned, you've done it on that day. So what it actually means is you don't get 12 months, you get the additional 2. Does that make sense? I've done it 2 months early, I know when the date is, but because I've done it 2 months early, I effectively go right past that date, all the way round, and then back to that date. Not the 2 month earlier date, but the other date. What that effectively does, it gives me 14 months, doesn't it? Not 12, because I did it 2 months early. And that was a way really of trying to assist some of the larger landlords and some of the larger local authorities and housing associations that are very good and they get in early. They don't do them all, don't get me wrong, they have trouble getting access to many properties and they have lots of unique ways of gaining access to those. But with the ones that they do get into, that actually does make them a saving, because they are doing them, they keep that date in place. It is a duty on landlords. Somebody said to the other day, sir, they said, no, hold on a minute, but how am I going to record all that? No, it's duties on landlords. So it's for landlords to record that information, very much for them. So however, that discretion may be exercised only once in relation to each appliance or flue in the relevant premises. Only in order to align the deadline date in relation to the next safety check of that appliance or flue with the deadline date in relation to the next safety check of any other appliance or installation. Just to give a very quick example, rented premises has a cooker and a fire and a boiler which require an annual safety check. The deadline, i.e. 12 months after the previous check was carried out, i.e. 1st of September. The window for the new safety check to take place and retain the deadline date is the 1st of July, 1st of September 2018, sorry. So example, the next safety check is to be done by the 1st of September, but it's completed early, e.g. 1st of July. Therefore, 2 months remain on the current safety check, which is still valid. And the record, so the replacement safety check record, could run up to 14 months and does. The remaining 2 months of the gas safety record, 1st of July to September, plus the 12 months is 14. So basically, because you're getting early, you're not being penalised. This is similar to taking really a car in early for its MOT, isn't it? Very similar. And we haven't had any issues. It seems to be working quite well. And I have to say that, if it makes this process a little bit better for some of the landlords, etc., and they don't feel that they're being penalised, then it's great. But it is for them to record, not necessarily for you to be able to record. You get in early, they have to manage that process, because I'll tell you again, and I made this very clear to a few gentlemen earlier on, Reg 36 is duties of a landlord. Now, you might be a landlord, so don't get me wrong, you'd have that duty. But in reality, it's for them to record, recover, and to manage that process. Well, that's about right for 12:30. I'd like to say thanks very much anyway for coming along. Appreciate your time. What I will say, look, I'm going to be here. Directly behind me, we've got the gas safe stand, so if you do need to check or double check on anything, please come and have a chat. But what I would like to say is thanks for your time, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very